Welcome to VSOW. This is the deep dive where we basically take a whole bunch of sources on a topic and boil them down for you, giving you that shortcut to being really well informed.
And today we're tackling someone truly complex, Jerry Springer. We're going deep into his life, his legacy, which is, let's face it, deeply contradictory. Our sources cover everything, really his early political ambitions, that infamous TV empire, and even his thoughts towards the end.
Yeah, our mission today, it's pretty ambitious, I think. We want to get under the skin of this man's complexity. We have to look way beyond the chair throwing and the yelling to really grasp the depth of his political background and the massive cultural impact he had, almost by accident, it seems.
That's the core tension, isn't it? It's one of those great American paradoxes, maybe from the last, 50 years. How does a guy with this incredibly serious background, political science from Tulane, law degree from Northwestern, advising Robert F. Kennedy, mayor of Cincinnati, how does that guy end up hosting a TV show that, he himself basically called stupid?
Right. And critics just slammed as trash, yet others defended it as, anti-elitist.
Exactly. That contradiction is what we're trying to unpack today.
And for you listening, if, the only image you have is that chaotic stage, well, you might need to recalibrate a bit. We're going to cover stuff that could really change how you see him. Did you know how close he came to winning a congressional seat? Or the specific details involving actual checks of that scandal back in the 70s that made him resign?
Yeah, the checks are always a detail that jumps out.
And his weirdly diverse cultural footprint. Popping up in the X-Files is a key plot point, or getting eaten by a shark in Sharknado 3. It's wild.
It really is a phenomenal journey. And to really get how he made that pivot, we absolutely have to start at the beginning. So, Section 1, the road not taken Springer's serious political career. The idealist phase, you could say.
Yeah, looking at those early years, it seems so clear he was aiming for high-level public service. This wasn't someone just drifting into law school. He was on a path.
Absolutely. The 1960s, that's where his intellectual foundation was laid. Got his bachelor's in political science from Tulane, clear sign of intent right there. Then straight on to Northwestern for his law degree. Graduated in '68. He had the credentials, the focus. He was ready for the political establishment.
And maybe the most defining moment, tragically defining, was getting involved with the Kennedys. He was a campaign advisor for Robert F. Kennedy.
Right, and the timing here is just crucial for understanding how his worldview might have shifted. RFK announced his run in March '68. Just 3 months later, June '68, he's assassinated. For Springer, and loads of young idealists on that campaign, Kennedy's death wasn't just, a political loss. It felt like the violent end of a whole progressive dream for America. It definitely left a mark on that generation's idealism.
So after that tragedy, the path forward maybe wasn't so obvious anymore. He heads back to the Midwest, right? Cincinnati, starts practicing law. But that political ambition, it wasn't gone.
Not at all. It was immediate, really. By 1970, he's launching his first big campaign running for Congress as a Democrat. But even that gets hit by this, surreal interruption almost instantly.
What happened?
Our sources say just 3 days after announcing he's running, boom, he gets called up for active duty at Fort Knox. He was an Army reservist, had to serve for 4 months right in the middle of launching his campaign.
Wow. Talk about killing your momentum. So how did he do when he finally got back to the race?
Well, he jumped right back in as soon as he was discharged, which says something about his resolve, I think. He was up against the incumbent Republican, Donald Clancy, and look, he lost, but the result was actually pretty significant.
How so?
They pulled 45% of the vote. Now, this was a district that was traditionally heavily Republican, getting 45%. That showed he had real political juice, that he could be viable. He definitely laid some serious groundwork for a future in politics.
Okay, so D.C. didn't work out that time. He shifts focus locally to Cincinnati and finds success there pretty quickly, right? Wins a city council seat in '71.
Yeah, and later gets named vice mayor because he did so well in re-elections. It looked like, his path as a civic leader was pretty much set.
Until 1974, the big scandal hits.
Yeah, a major, major personal scandal. He's 30 years old at this point on the city council, and it comes out he'd paid for sex at a brothel over in Kentucky, sometimes called a health club back then. And the way it came out was, the payment method.
The checks. He used personal checks.
Personal checks, not cash. A traceable paper trail. It's almost unbelievable.
Can we get into the specifics? How did this all come out?
Sure. It surfaced because he actually had to testify at the trial of the guys running the place. And on the stand, he admitted it, said he'd visited twice, and crucially wrote 2 personal checks, one for $25, one for $50 to pay for sex. Now, he wasn't ever charged with anything himself, but the public fallout in Cincinnati, Huge. Most political careers would just evaporate right there.
And yet, he didn't just survive it. He almost seemed to, I don't know, use it somehow. The way he bounced back immediately is maybe the first real glimpse of his knack for controlling a narrative.
It says a lot, maybe about Cincinnati's political vibe then, but probably more about his own appeal. Because get this, he gets reelected to a city council seat in 1975, just 1 year after the whole scandal and resignation. He
Wow.
didn't hide. He faced the voters head on. And winning that reelection kind of cemented this image, didn't it? Flawed, maybe, but honest. Owned his mistakes. That became his brand, really, for decades.
And that comeback eventually leads him to the highest office he ever held.
Exactly. He becomes the 56th mayor of Cincinnati, served a 1-year term, 77 to 78. He was actually selected by his fellow council members. And that success, well, it spurred him on to aim higher again. He runs for Ohio governor in 1982 as the Democrat.
That bid didn't succeed in the end, but the campaign itself was significant, right? It had this moment that almost feels like modern confessional politics.
Oh, absolutely. That 82 campaign might be more important for its media strategy than the result. He knew the scandal would be hammered by opponents, so what does he do? He tackles it directly. In a TV campaign ad.
I remember reading about this. What did he say exactly?
The quote is kind of a masterclass in framing. He says something like, 9 years ago I spent time with a woman I shouldn't have, and I paid her with a check. I wish I hadn't done that. Then the pivot. But in the rough world of politics, opponents are not about to let personal embarrassments lay to rest.
So he's not really asking for forgiveness. He's saying, yeah, I messed up, I'm human, but also framing his opponents as these like relentless political attack dogs.
Precisely. He positioned himself as relatable, flawed, not some saint. And by doing that, he kind of defanged the opposition's main attack. He controlled the story by confessing first. It's a strategy we saw him use again and again later in his media career.
That ability to shape the narrative, combined with the fact that the path to higher office seemed closed, that leads us right into section 2, doesn't it? The maybe accidental pivot into television. Losing the governor's race was really the definitive fork in the road.
Yeah. When the top political job seemed out of reach, media was maybe the next logical step. What's interesting, though, is how serious his first media gigs were. He started doing these political commentaries on the radio, WEDN-FM in Cincinnati, called the Springer Memorandum. Got good reviews. He even did them while he was still mayor.
And that radio work opened the door to TV news.
It did. He parlayed that into a proper job as a political reporter and commentator at WLWT, the NBC affiliate there. And we need to stress, this wasn't the circus that came later. This was serious, respected local news, analyzing politics, interviewing officials.
And he was good at it, like genuinely successful.
Hugely successful, celebrated even. He won, get this, 10 local Emmy Awards for his work at WLWT. 10. It's so important to remember that when we talk about how his career evolved, we're talking about a decorated, serious broadcast journalist, someone who'd mastered commentary.
Okay, so how does a 10-time local Emmy winner go from respected news anchor to, well, to the Jerry Springer Show? The show starts in 91, right? Launched out of Cincinnati by Multimedia Entertainment. Did it start out serious?
Ironically, yes. The original concept for the Jerry Springer Show was basically a hard news talk show. Think Donahue. Political debates, serious social issues. But the daytime talk show market in the early 90s, it was brutal. A total war zone for ratings. They called it the talk show wars.
And the sources point to a specific turning point, right?
Yeah.
A moment they decided, okay, serious isn't working, let's chase the younger crowd.
Yeah, that shift really came because of the huge success of Ricki Lake. Her show proved that going after a younger audience, one hungry for more sensation, more drama, that was the key to ratings gold. So Springer's show basically copied that business model. The change was fast, and there was no going back.
And the network itself basically told them to go crazy.
That's the story. NBC Universal bought the show, starting with its second season, but apparently came with a condition, almost a command. You're only allowed to do crazy. That instruction, whether explicit or just understood, that was the tipping point. It unleashed the show that ran for 27 seasons, almost 4,000 episodes by the time it ended in 2018. The serious newsman was now officially the ringmaster of a sanctioned spectacle.
Which takes us right into section 3, the peak of shock TV. Once the mandate was crazy, the show didn't just dip its toe in sensationalism, it built a factory for it, created all these tropes we still recognize today.
It really did become this exercise in predictable chaos, didn't it? You knew what you were getting. The tropes were the show. The demand for the paternity test, immediate high stakes, the constant bleeped-out swearing signaling raw, unfiltered anger, the ever-present security guard, Steve Wilkos being the most famous, always ready to dive in. And of course, that audience chant like a Pavlovian response, Jerry, Jerry, Jerry.
To really get the impact, we have to talk about some of the specific content, the stuff that really pushed buttons and made headlines. Let's start with maybe one of the most absurdly memorable, I Married a Horse from 2004.
Oh, that episode. It's kind of the peak of the show, deliberately going beyond any normal human drama. It featured this guy, Mark, a farmer from Missouri, who identified as a zoophile. And he introduces his quote-unquote horse wife named Pixel. He was dead serious about it, claimed he'd worked hard to earn her love and respect.
Didn't they show pictures?
They did. Pictures of the horse wearing women's underwear, apparently tailored for it. It was
Wow.
something.
And Springer's own reaction during this is pretty telling, isn't it?
It is. He said later he actually felt physically ill on air during that taping. He insisted he wasn't fully briefed on just how specific this was going to get. He thought maybe the guy's human wife had just been thrown from the horse or something. It shows that tightrope the producers walked, pushing for maximum shock, while maybe trying to give the host some plausible deniability.
And the bizarre ending to that story.
Oh yeah, the footnote is that Mark later reported the horse had, quote, left him. You can't make this stuff up. Or maybe you can.
Okay, so that's peak absurdity. But then there were episodes that weirdly touched on actual social debates, like I Slept with 251 Men in 10 Hours from 1995.
Right, that one featured Annabelle Chong, who was a porn actor. And it was more than just shock value. Chong herself saw what she did, this massive sexual feat, as something deeply empowering, like flipping the script on gender norms about female sexuality. But then you watch the discussion and you see Springer's own sort of traditional morality bumping up against the spectacle he's presenting.
How did it come across? What did he ask her?
Well, he asked her a question that today would definitely be called out as slut-shaming. He asked, are you ever going to be able to love a man? It's a question coming from a very conventional place, morally speaking. It showed that the political idealist with certain values hadn't totally vanished, even while he's hosting this discussion about extreme sexual behavior. It's a perfect snapshot of the show's weird tension. Radical content, but maybe a confused moral center from the host.
And then there were the classics, the tangled family dramas that really fueled the Jerry Jerry chants, like that one titled something like Married to Your Dad but Want You Back. Almost Shakespearean, but not.
Exactly. That's where the sheer messiness of real human lives seemed wilder than anything you could write. This story involved a woman from Montana. She breaks up with her boyfriend, then gets involved with, wait for it, his father, has a child with the father.
So the child is the ex-boyfriend's half-sister.
Biologically, yes. And she comes on the show trying to get back together with the son, the ex-boyfriend. He, unsurprisingly, wasn't interested. These kinds of segments just hammered home this idea that regular people lead these incredibly complicated, often chaotic lives.
Now, the whole engine driving this success relied on one claim: authenticity. Was it real? This whole debate about whether the show was genuine or faked is a massive part of its legacy, isn't it?
Oh, huge. And Springer himself, he was an absolute defender of its reality. His main argument was about definitions. He'd insist, look, it's reality because these are real people bringing their real-life situations onto the stage. He argued their anger, their betrayal, their tears, that was all genuine.
He drew a line between his show and other reality TV.
He did. He'd say his show is more real than, say, putting people on a fake island or locking them in a house, which he saw as completely manufactured situations. He always maintained he never met the guests beforehand, only knew their names and the basic topic.
But the show was famous for its ambushes, the big surprises. Someone finding out live on air about cheating or a paternity result. How did they manage the legal side of that? Seems risky.
Extremely risky. So our sources detail this, frankly, quite sophisticated, maybe ethically murky vetting process they used specifically for those surprise reveals. If a big shock was planned, the guest who was about to be surprised, they were given a list of 21 potential outcomes, like a menu of possible awful news.
21 possibilities.
Yep, and the guest had to agree on paper to all 21 possibilities. If they didn't approve every single one, the segment wouldn't happen. That was their legal shield. It meant the surprise was technically pre-approved in every conceivable form, even if the guest had no idea which of the 21 horrors was about to land.
Wow, that's managed mayhem with legal cover. Still, lots of people outside the show insisted it was mostly fake or at least greatly exaggerated.
Yeah, the counter-narrative was persistent. You hear accounts of, you know, producers hiring actors from college drama classes to fill roles, producers admitting they'd help guests craft the story, maybe pump up the conflict to make better TV. There were even stories of people waiting in line to be audience members being approached and offered a storyline to act out on stage, like that band, The Locust, who apparently performed some made-up love triangle. So it became this blend, right? Real people, maybe, but often with artificially inflated drama.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Section 4, the serious side and the burden of culture. Because beneath the ringmaster, there was still this political animal, right? That tension between the idealist he started as and the host he became never really went away.
No, he never cut ties with his roots. He stayed a vocal liberal, a Democrat, called himself a political junkie right up to the end. He watched the news constantly, MSNBC, CNN, even Fox, though he made a point of calling Fox ridiculously to the right.
And given his family background, his parents being Jewish refugees who fled the Nazis hosting certain guests, like racists or KKK members, must have hit differently for him. Very personal.
Oh, incredibly personal. More than just intense, maybe existential. There's
Mhm.
this one segment from 1995 that really stands out. He's got this anti-Semitic priest on. For most of it, Springer keeps his professional cool, finally just says, you know, I don't hate you, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
But then the priest launches into this wild Holocaust denial rant.
And Springer snaps.
The mask just drops. Suddenly, he's not the detached host anymore. He's the son of refugees. He tells the guy forcefully, emotionally, to shut your face. It almost got physical on stage. It was this brief, raw moment, but it reminded you there was a person with a deep history under all the chaos.
A glimpse behind the curtain. But usually when critics attacked the show, calling it trash, his main defense was political, wasn't it? The elitism argument.
That was his go-to defense, absolutely consistent. He'd argue the criticism was fundamentally classist. He'd say, look at late-night TV. You have wealthy, famous, good-looking celebrities talking about the exact same things who they slept with, drug problems, bad behavior.
Right.
And they're treated like gods, called brave or whatever. But when regular working-class people come on my show with the same issues, they're labeled trash. For Springer, the only real difference was the guest's bank accounts and perceived social status.
It's a powerful point, but doesn't it kind of sidestep the whole issue of exploitation? I mean, the show was manufacturing conflict for entertainment, potentially causing real harm. Did he acknowledge that?
That's the core of the ethical debate, isn't it? And it maybe speaks to the necessary cynicism involved in hosting that kind of show. Springer was actually remarkably candid about the show's quality, or lack thereof. He famously called it obviously silly. Admitted, I'm the first to say it's stupid, I wouldn't watch it. He even joked, didn't he, I've ruined the culture. So he saw the potential damage, but he rationalized it.
How did he rationalize it? By comparing it to other media.
Exactly. He drew a direct comparison, often to the influence of something like Fox News. When asked which was more dangerous, his show or Fox, he was clear. He argued Fox was worse because it had more consequence. His show, he'd say, was silly. People get angry, yeah, but the next day they're dating someone else. Crucially, he'd add, it's never taken health care from anyone. It's never put us into a war. He framed his show as basically harmless, disposable entertainment, unlike media with real political impact.
Except it wasn't always harmless, was it? There were some really tragic incidents linked to the show that brought up serious questions about their duty of care.
Yeah, the controversies around guest safety were significant and deeply troubling. Back in 2002, a woman who'd been on the show was murdered just hours after her episode aired. The episode reveals she was cheating on her violent ex-husband, and he and his new wife were later convicted of her murder.
That's horrific.
And then, much later, in 2018, another tragedy. A young man took his own life after his fiancée brought him on the show to reveal she was sleeping with his best friend. These incidents put immense pressure on the show, understandably.
So how did Springer and the producers respond to accusations that the show, by amplifying humiliation like that, shared some responsibility?
Springer always pushed back hard against the idea of direct causation. He argued the show didn't make anyone do anything violent afterward. He used that analogy, didn't he? Saying suing the show was like suing Walmart because you had an argument with someone in their shop. He also questioned what he saw as a double standard. Why was TV, especially his kind of TV, held to such intense scrutiny over potential harm or humiliation, while, say, Print journalism could do what they want, destroy lives, often without the same kind of public outcry or legal threat. He basically saw it as arbitrary censorship targeting low culture.
That tension, that constant back and forth between low culture and high culture, it leads perfectly into Section 5. Because Springer's brand became so huge, so pervasive, that he almost became this mandatory cultural reference point, often parodying himself.
Right, this is where he really leaned into it. He understood that the show's controversial legacy was its brand, so he embraced self-parody, popping up as himself, or characters clearly based on his show, basically laughing at the chaos he'd created.
Some of his movie cameos are just legendary examples of this, like Austin Powers, the spy who shagged me in
Oh,
'99.
that's a brilliant one because it perfectly mimics the show's structure. You've got Scott Evil confronting Dr. Evil on a fake Jerry Springer show set.
Yeah.
The audience is chanting, fights break out, and then there's a KKK member involved in the brawl. It's a direct nod to the actual controversial guests Springer sometimes had. It showed the show was now part of the, mainstream comedy vocabulary.
And then the really out there stuff, showing he was game for pretty much anything, like his role in the Sharknado series.
Yeah, Sharknado 3, Oh Hell No, from 2015. He plays a character named Mr. White, and his death is just instant B-movie ridiculousness. He's trying to take a selfie at Universal Studios during the Sharknado and wham, gets quickly devoured by a killer shark. It just confirms he's this cultural object happy to be used in the most meta-ironic ways.
But it wasn't all just comedy cameos. His influence seeped into serious, respected TV drama, too. The X-Files, specifically.
That's actually one of his most significant appearances, culturally speaking, because it wasn't just a throwaway gag. It was the episode The Postmodern Prometheus in Season 5. He was the first guest star ever to play himself on The X-Files, and his show was actually part of the plot. Agents Mulder and Scully get drawn into this weird case because the woman involved first learned about the mystery by watching the Jerry Springer show.
So his show, supposedly the lowest form of culture, is literally the source of information that brings in the FBI.
Exactly. It kind of legitimizes this show, weirdly, as just part of the background noise, part of the information landscape where even bizarre truths might surface. And that episode, despite being weird, had a serious theme about accepting people who were different, which, in his own chaotic way, Springer sometimes touched on too.
And you can't talk about cultural impact without mentioning the ultimate stamp of approval, or maybe mockery, appearing on The Simpsons.
Oh yeah, if The Simpsons does you, you've arrived. It was in Treehouse of Horror IX. The Simpsons family is on his show because Maggie might be the alien Kang's daughter. It ends, as you'd expect, with total carnage. Kang vaporizes someone in the audience and the whole cast and crew, and Maggie attacks Springer, leading Lisa to deadpan, and now he's dead. Peak Simpsons.
He even dabbled in improv and reality competitions himself, right?
Yeah.
Showed a different side.
He did. Appeared on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Twice, I think.
Hosted a fake Springer episode based on Little Red Riding Hood. Just leaning into the absurdity with these incredibly sharp comedians.
And Dancing with the Stars in 2006, that revealed something quite personal about him, didn't it?
Yeah, he was on Season 3, partnered with Kim Johnson. Lasted quite a while, till the 6th round. He said later the whole reason he did it was for his daughter, Katie, because she loved the show so much. Which brings us nicely into Section 6, his final act, and some of those deeper personal reflections.
Right. Springer passed away in 2023. He was 79, had pancreatic cancer. And the sources give us a glimpse into his private life, which seems quite different from the public persona. Married to Mickey Velton since way back in 1973.
And his relationship with his daughter, Katie, his only child, seems really central to understanding the man behind the microphone. Katie was born in 1976 with several significant disabilities, legally blind, deaf in one ear, born without nasal passages.
That must have presented incredible challenges for the family. How did they approach raising her?
According to Katie herself, her parents made a very conscious decision early on. They decided they were never going to treat her different. We're going to make sure she knows she's not different. That commitment to just unconditional love and acceptance in his private life, it stands in such stark contrast to the judgment and chaos he often presided over professionally. It's another one of those contradictions.
And Katie's doing well now.
Yeah, she works teaching children with special needs, and as we mentioned, she was the inspiration for him doing Dancing with the Stars.
So after the main talk show finally wrapped up its incredibly long run, Springer didn't exactly retire, did he? He launched Judge Jerry in 2019. He joked it was his first grown-up job in 30 years.
Judge Jerry.
Yeah.
It felt like a deliberate move back towards maybe seriousness,
Right.
or at least a different kind of format. Though he still brought his humor to it, of course.
Yeah.
It was set up like a real courtroom dealing with actual small claims disputes. It forced him to be the objective decision maker, not the guy stirring the pot.
But he couldn't resist a little joke about his past, right?
Oh, absolutely not. He quipped there'd be no chair throwing on Judge Jerry, because, as he put it, benches are harder to throw. But underlying the jokes, the format did require a level of seriousness. These were real people with real disputes, often who didn't even know they'd end up on TV when they filed their case. It felt like a conscious effort, maybe, to put a more respectable capstone on his long TV career.
And his whole journey, really, from the political idealism through the TV chaos to the judge's bench, it can almost be summed up by that phrase he often used to sign off, especially towards the end.
Yeah, that simple, enduring message he kept repeating, his final public thought, really. Take care of yourself and each other. Just a basic plea for human decency, delivered by the guy who arguably made millions exploiting human indecency. It's the final contradiction.
It really is a masterclass in contradiction, isn't it? We started off asking how this serious political player could possibly become the king of shock TV. And what we found synthesizing all this is this thread of almost relentless public engagement running through his entire life. Didn't matter if it was advising RFK or orchestrating fights on daytime.
He was always engaging with the public, one way or another, a deeply political person who somehow found staggering fame by embracing what he often called the lowest form of culture. But, and this is key, he consistently argued that judging that culture was just elitism. And even at the end, he used that huge platform he'd built to push for simple kindness. It's fascinating how he reshaped things.
Yeah, maybe the real legacy isn't just the memory of the fights or the chants. Maybe it's how he blurred that line, the line between genuine human drama and drama created purely for entertainment. He absolutely profited from that confusion. But he also, maybe validly, pointed out the different rules society applies to the rich versus the poor when they air their dirty laundry.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question for you, the listener, to think about. Springer's show, you could argue, was ground zero for so much of modern reality TV exploiting conflict, exaggerating drama, all for ratings and profit. So, as you look at the media landscape today, with that line between real and fake, between drama and maybe humiliation still being constantly blurred, are we maybe still just living in the world that Jerry built? Is today's reality media just running on his engine?
That's definitely something to chew on. A provocative thought indeed.
Well, if you found this deep dive into Jerry Springer's contradictory life interesting, please do remember to subscribe, maybe leave a like or a comment. It really helps support what we do here.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to VSOW.